So Chainsaw Man is a very interesting anime for me. It's actually the first time I've watched the anime for something after I've read the manga. So although I knew it was going to happen, I was wondering the entire time if they were going to take any creative liberties, and surprisingly they took very little, and it's probably because they didn't have to take very many. The Chainsaw Man anime is practically a shot-for-shot remake of the manga. In fact, if you watched the subversion, the dialogue is exactly the same. They changed maybe 5% of all of it. This anime hardly adds or removes anything from the manga at all. Off the top of my head, I can think of one chapter in the manga that did not make it into the anime, which is understandable because it was fairly unnecessary, and they added one scene somewhere later in the season. A huge reason that it's important that I mention that a lot of the source material is exactly the same as it is in the manga as it is in the anime is because a lot of people worried that the anime-only fans would mischaracterize Denji. Firstly, if you're an anime-only fan, you're not any better or worse than the manga fans. That's a silly debate. But secondly, if you lack media literacy for the manga, you're not going to understand the anime, and vice versa. This is because for at least the subversion, I did not watch the dub. You're getting the exact same thing, and for the most part, this manga translates flawlessly in animated form. I could think of like 1 or 2 times where the animation doesn't look maybe as good as it should. Firstly, it should be noted that anytime Denji is in chainsaw form, he is also in CGI form. However, before you get mad that it's CGI, I want you to think about something. Do you hate CGI, or do you hate bad CGI? That's correct, you hate bad CGI. Chainsaw Man does not have bad CGI. In the beginning of a fight when he first transforms, yeah, I'd argue it's a bit noticeable, but it's not bad, and especially in the fights, you'll hardly even notice it because of how fast-paced and interesting everything is. It's probably the last thing you're thinking about. There's like one scene in episode 4 when Denji crip walks on the Bat Devil because he's kind of just positioned weirdly, but if we're being fair, I'm a little nitpicky here because he's literally missing limbs. Regardless, the animation for the rest of this series is great. The fights are fluid, they're impactful, and they hit hard. Even when nothing is going on, the animation looks fantastic. Subtle motions are fluid, and they're just simply satisfying to look at. Going back to the fights for a second, they're actually very well balanced. It's not always inherently obvious who's going to win at the beginning, middle, or even near end of some of these fights. Sometimes there's just a lot of quick wits involved. These fights are very, very engaging to watch. One thing I've heard people say about this show is that the environments don't look good. They're all gray, kind of boring, and kind of drab. But personally, I disagree. I find that they always fit the mood, and fights taking place in these gray, boring cityscapes make sense for Chainsaw Man. And that's because Chainsaw Man is not a happy anime. It's not upbeat, it's not lighthearted. Chainsaw Man is absolutely brutal. Episode 8 arguably bringing one of the most brutal and intense shifts to the universe, and in season 2 we're going to see the effects of that way even heavier, and it's going to hurt. The Chainsaw Man anime focuses heavily on the themes of human nature, sadness, loss, and for a lot of the characters, their own inability to cope. Hey, let's have a quick talk. Come here, get in nice and close. You've probably found yourself saying once or twice, "Oh my god, Denji's just like me for real," because he likes boobs or something. No, stop that. Do not say that. I could give a whole psychoanalysis on this guy, but Denji has some serious mental and emotional issues, and he is nothing like you. Denji is a very complex character who cannot cope with his emotions to save his life, and he uses his sex drive as a motivation because he doesn't have anything else. He never has had anything else. And throughout that show, that drive will and does fail him constantly. He tries very hard to form emotional attachments with people throughout the series that just don't work for whatever reason. Without spoiling anything, his sex drive later in the manga is something that gets very confusing for him. But in this season, through his relationship with Himeno and his one scene with Power as well, this is very well illustrated. It's going to get much deeper though. My point being, Denji is a very complex character. Most of the characters in the show are very complex characters. It's easy to say that Power is one-dimensional, and even if that was the case, she'd probably be the only one-dimensional character in the show, but I feel like we just think that because she has very one-dimensional traits. Like, she's a textbook narcissist. She puts on that facade, and we get it taken down in episodes 3 and 4, but the problem is we kind of don't really explore it that much after it. Through the entirety of the series after episode 4, she's kind of just goes back to being the silly narcissist character, which sucks a little. I may be alone in thinking this, but Makima, in my opinion, is the only character that doesn't transfer as well from the manga as she does from the anime, and that's literally just because of the deadpan stare she gives. Something about it is just considerably better in black and white, and it feels like her expression is just slightly different. Something about it that just could not get captured by the animation, and maybe I'm just crazy, but that's how I felt. I do think her voice actor does an amazing job, even if her voice acting is just literally mostly monotone. Aki is good, but I don't really know if there's much to mention about him. He's just a dedicated, straightforward guy. I mean, even one of the side characters later in this series just calls him the cool anime protagonist character. I will say Kobeni was a surprise. The anime community really latched on to her. Personally, my least favorite character in Demon Slayer was Zenitsu, because all he does is scream about how scared he is. I find it the most annoying thing ever, and I was worried Kobeni was going to become that again, especially because of the 8th floor episode. Like, this show prepares you for her to be annoying, but it actually ties directly into her character development in a very interesting way. The 8th floor episode breaks Kobeni down a lot to build her back twice as strong, and it is actually done very, very interestingly. Honestly, Kobeni doing nothing but screaming at people for an entire episode does make it worth the wait for her character development, because she is goated in the later half of this season. Also, no, unfortunately, she does not control the sloppy blowjob devil. Okay, so we've covered the characters, we've covered the animation, we've covered the themes, plot, we've covered the atmosphere. What's next? Oh, the music! Kickback by Kenshi Yonezu, and I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, is probably one of the best songs I have ever heard. I have listened to it 44 times since this anime came out. I really fucking love this song, but it completely outclasses the rest of the music in this show. And I'm not saying the rest of the music in this anime is bad. It's very, very good. It's just Kickback by Kenshi Yonezu, sorry I'm mispronouncing that, is triple S tier, and the rest of the music in this anime is just S tier. This show's music is really, really good. Sorry, let me calm down a bit. This show's music is really, really good. During the fight scenes, the music is intense and it's punchy, and during the low scenes, it's slow and it's somber, and it does a really good job of capturing and intensifying any moment it's in. I think good music can sometimes be music you don't realize is there, especially in slower moments. I feel like punchier music, you kind of want to notice it's there. But in slower moments when you don't realize it's there and it just adds to the scene without you even noticing it, that's good music. That's Chainsaw Man music. I think the pacing of the show is really good. Some people might argue with me on that. But I heard someone on Twitter say, and I wish I had a screenshot of this tweet because I would love to give credit for this, but someone on Twitter said that Chainsaw Man is like ADHD anime, and that is literally the most true thing I've ever heard. This show does not go an episode without giving you some sort of action, and honestly, it's more impressive than anything that it does this and manages to keep a coherent plotline and just keep everything interesting. Like, we still get our moments of slow, impactful character development, but a lot of the show is just breakneck fighting, and it's very, very good. And I feel like it's almost better than Demon Slayer in that way, because Demon Slayer has a lot of fighting, but the only character development you get is, oh my god, this guy was a really good fighter and now he's dead. But here it's actually, oh my god, this guy was a really good fighter and he was actually my partner for the last 20 years and now he's dead. Plugging all that into the rating meter, I'm genuinely feeling a 9.5 out of 10 for this season of Chainsaw Man. I just feel like the show is missing a little something to push it right over the edge. And unfortunately, I feel bad, but I can't quite articulate what it is. This show is great, but I feel like sometimes the stakes and the character motivations could be a little bit more clear and gripping. I think for me personally, Aki is kind of just your average guy who wants revenge and knows he might just die doing it. Power doesn't really want anything, and we don't know what Makima wants, which is intentional, but still. And Kobeni is literally just there for a paycheck, which is admittedly funny, but it's still like, I feel like none of the characters really want to be there. That being said, this is once again probably just me being nitpicky, and honestly, if you have a different opinion on this, please put it down below in the comments, because I'm very interested and I'm willing to change my outlook on this. But for the fun score, this show's going to get a 10 out of 10. It rivals Demon Slayer for just being pure animated fun. But this show, like I said earlier, definitely has more substance than Demon Slayer for sure. Anyway, I wasted a lot of time that I could have been using to listen to Kickback, recording this video, so I'm going to go do that now. Hey Google, play Kickback.